You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Well, good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. During this past week of getting ready for tonight's show, I stumbled across a website that I may have found in prior visits and just had forgotten about it. But I was kind of excited to see some of the pictures that I found there. And so it's actually the Edgecombe Memorial Library's online presence. And they've got, I think it's like 1,700 pictures, 1,700 pictures there on the Edgecombe Memorial Library website. And so I went there, at least initially anyway, hoping to find some old pictures of Rocky Mount. But they seem to start out with primarily Tarboro. And so I went through the first couple of hundred pictures and found some really neat pictures of old Tarboro. Some I had seen before actually, on other sites, and they were just kind of duplicates. So one or two of the ones we're going to show tonight, you may remember seeing from previous shows. They were just old, neat pictures, and so I thought I would just share them with you again tonight. I will go back to that site and kind of browse on through some more, because I'm sure there's some Rocky Mount pictures in there too. After all, Rocky Mount, half of it does lie in Edgecombe County. But I was really impressed with the clarity. These pictures date back to the late 1800s and early 1900s. And you wouldn't expect pictures to be of any real quality being that old, but some of them are kind of grainy and not too clear, but there are some that are really, really clear, and you can zoom in on them and get some really neat detail. So we'll get into those in just a minute. I always think about this after the show's over with, and I'm a little lax about saying it during the show, but I always want to make a point, if I can, to thank our sponsors. This show, like all the others on WHIG, wouldn't happen if it weren't for the sponsors. So thank you, all the sponsors. And if you'd like to become a sponsor for the show, feel free to give the station a call. You can call me 407-1111, or you can call the TV station, and I don't have that number off the top of my head. We'll try to get it and give that out a little bit later on. But we're always looking for sponsors for the show, so we're glad to have you as a sponsor for Wayback Wednesday, or any other show for that matter on WHIG TV. Of course, the number anytime during the show tonight is 407-1111. Call me anytime, share your memories or your thoughts with me. Love to hear from you. So with that being said, without further ado, Lee, let's jump right. I got a bunch tonight. I got about 30 pictures here. We may not get through them all, so we'll go through as fast as we can and get as many as we can. And like I said, some of these you've seen before, and hopefully most of them you have not. But anyway, Lee, let's go ahead and roll in. Start with number one here. This picture is from 1898. Most of these pictures were dated on the Edgecombe Memorial Library website, which is unusual. Now, some just said circa 1890s or 1895, something like that. But most of them had an actual date of when the picture was made. I'd really love to find out who it was that took these pictures, because the quality is great. And you can zoom in, like I say, Lee, go ahead and zoom in. This is, of course, the Tarboro train station. And this was, train depot, and this was dated 1898. And so if you zoom in, Lee, particularly on the kids' feet, this was obviously in the summertime. Every one of these kids are barefoot. Some of the adults, too, are barefooted, obviously. But like I said, it's obviously in the summertime, but I just thought it was neat when I went through the picture and looked and saw that every child anyway, and some of the adults too, were barefooted. So it was obviously warm weather. And then I felt sorry for the women. They're all dressed up with these long dresses on down to their, almost to their shins, and they've got to be miserable. You see a couple of them got umbrellas that they're trying to hide from the sun. But it's a neat old picture here, and this was just, like I said, one of the ones you could zoom right in on and get some really good detail on some of these old pictures here. And it's always neat to me to be able to do that. So anyway, again, this is the Tarboro Train Depot, and this was dated 1898 in Tarboro. I'm going to try to find out who took these pictures. There was no information that I could determine today as far as who the photographer was, but whoever he was had a very good camera for this time period to get this quality of pictures. So, okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 2. This is one of the ones that's not quite as clear, but again, we're talking about a picture that's 125 or 30 years old thereabouts. This was a little older. In fact, this was dated 1890. And what you're looking at there is two business leaders from Tarboro before the turn of the century, 1890 this picture was dated. The gentleman on the left, his name was Battle Cosby. And the one on the right in the buggy there was named Mr. Battle Bryan. Interesting that both of these men had the same first name, Battle Cosby and Battle Bryan. Now, Battle Cosby was a banker, and he ran an insurance and banking business in Tarboro. Battle Bryan was a hotelier. He had a hotel in Tarboro in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so I'm not exactly sure where this picture was taken. My guess is somewhere on Main Street, Tarboro, or in that vicinity of the bank or the Hotel One. I think they were both on Main Street. But anyway, if we're good, go ahead, item number 3. This is actually a picture of Mr. Battle Cosby standing out front of his bank. And there's another one, Lee, you can zoom in on this and go right on up and get all up in his face there. But it's a really detailed picture. And again, this is from 1890. So to get this kind of clarity in a picture that's this old, oh God, it's amazing to me. 133 years old now this picture is. And you know, we look at these old buildings, and I've said this before, I never cease to be amazed at the ornate detail and the craftsmanship that went into building these old buildings. Lee, if you could, pan up toward the top of the building there. I just want to take a gander at the detail work. You see there above the windows, the intricate brickwork there. It's just a lot of detail. You just don't see this kind of work anymore, unfortunately. Even at the very top of the roof there, you see those. I can't imagine why there was a need to do that protruding structure of bricks there on the very top of the wall of the building there. But there's actually 2 of them, one on either side of the building. And it's just a neat architectural design that may not serve any real function, but it just adds a neat flair to the roof, what would ordinarily otherwise be just a plain brick facade of the building there. So just a really neat old picture, and again, just kind of highlights some of the exquisite architectural craftsmanship that went into building these old buildings back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Okay, Lee, number 4, I mentioned Mr. Battle Bryan was a hotelier. And this is a picture of the Bryan Hotel. It was called the Bryan House Hotel. And as you can see, it's a 2-story structure there. I'm not exactly sure of an address, but this picture was dated 1890. So 1890, and they had a pretty good crowd, it looks like, at the Bryan House Hotel. You know, one thing I noticed too, up on the second floor, there's no balcony. It doesn't appear to be anywhere, any rails or anything. People just standing up there. It looks like power lines going across the front of the hotel there. So, but you know, something else too about these pictures. Of course, I'm not sure when the first paved roads hit Tarboro. I think it was around the 1915, 1920 time frame before we got our first paved roads in Rocky Mount. But every one of these pictures all appear to be a dirt road. I don't see any evidence of asphalt or paved roads in any of the pictures. And some of them, in fact, the wagon wheel tracks are quite prevalent. You can see them very plainly as we get into some of these other pictures. But again, this is the Bryan House Hotel, 1890 in Tarboro, North Carolina. Okay, Lee, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Andy?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Vivian Davis.
Yes, ma'am.
On all the pictures that you have shown, have you noticed that everybody, even to the children, are wearing hats?
It is very, very pronounced. It sure is. Yes, ma'am. Everybody's wearing a hat. Yeah, it was a good style, I guess.
I wonder what it is. Even the little children had on hats.
They sure do. They sure do. I'm guessing maybe in some cases to keep the sun out of their eyes. Maybe the other picture where all the kids were barefooted. I guess it was in the summertime. Maybe the hats helped keep the sun out of their eyes. Maybe I'm not sure, but you're exactly right. Everybody, the men, women, and kids all got on hats. You're exactly right.
You know, right. Well, my daddy was old, but he had a hat exactly like the first picture that you showed.
Mm-hmm.
All those children had on one of those straw hats.
Yep, they were. And you'll see that over and over again as we go through these pictures. There's a couple different types of hats that I saw that the men in particular were wearing, and the kids too, of course. But yep, you're exactly right. It's a really common thing to wear a hat. All right.
It's strange to me that all of them were wearing hats.
It sure is. Well, Miss Davis, good to hear from you here.
Okay.
All righty. Have a good night.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Okay. All right. So, Lee, I'll tell you what. See, that was number 3 there, and then that was number 4. Okay. So let's move on into number 5 if we could. This gentleman you're looking at here in item number 5 is Mr. Buck Powell. You may have never heard that name, Buck Powell, and had a business partner, and his business partner name escapes me at the moment. But he and his partner anyway were the ones who initially got the telephone service started in Tarboro. That was the forerunner, if you will, to what eventually became Carolina Telephone Telegraph. And so you might think of Mr. Buck Powell as the father or grandfather maybe of telephone service in Edgecombe County. Of course, that included Tarboro and Rocky Mount both. I don't think I've got a picture of his partner, but I do have an article that I meant to bring and I forgot to bring it that talks about these two gentlemen, Mr. Powell and his partner, and how they got together and purchased the poles and wires and stuff to string telephone lines up and down the road. And literally these two gentlemen themselves started the phone company. Neat story there about the history of the telephone service in Edgecombe County and indeed as it spread through eastern North Carolina. Okay, Lee, so let's continue on then. Item number 6. Just like Rocky Mount, Tarboro had a booming tobacco business at the turn of the century. In 1896, this picture was taken of the Central Tobacco Warehouse in Tarboro, and you see it's there by the train tracks there. So, this was just one, by the way. I'm not sure how many there were in Tarboro at the turn of the century, but this picture was dated 1896, the Central Tobacco Warehouse. And tobacco, cotton, both were big cash crops in Edgecombe County in the late 1800s, early 1900s, just like they were here in Rocky Mount and in Nash County. And so it's remarkable when you think back on it, how big of an impact and how big of an influence the agricultural business contributed to the growth of Nash and Edgecombe counties, Rocky Mount, Tarboro, eastern North Carolina for that matter, and certainly the state benefited from the agricultural business that was so prominent in this area. Certainly the railroad brought a lot of jobs in, starting in the 1840s and 50s and on through the 1900s. And in later years, the mills too for that matter, and in later years, we had other business and industry come in here, but agriculture remained pretty consistent throughout, and still does. There's still a pretty strong agriculture presence in this area even today. Okay, let's move on. Item number 7, if you would. And item number 7 is actually another that was dated 1899. We're just talking about agriculture. Here you look at the tobacco warehouse, and here is this picture. As you see at the bottom, it was captioned the cotton yard. And if you zoom in, Lee, I first thought it was at the edge of water, but it's not. That's actually a dirt area there outside of a platform where bales of cotton were, I guess, temporarily stored until they were loaded on either horse and buggies or some kind of wagon and hauled to either a train station to be shipped out of the area or to a mill. Like Rocky Mount, Tarboro did have a mill too, a knitting mill where cotton was spun into cloth, but this is actually referred to as the cotton yard. None of this had an address, so I don't know exactly where this was, but you see there was huge bales of cotton there. And I hate to beat a dead horse, but for a picture that's 124 years old, it's just amazing that it's as clear as it is. And as I said, all of these pictures I found on the Edgecombe Memorial Library webpage. You can see that there's people up there on that platform working those tobacco bundles, moving around those bales and so forth. Looks to be 4 or 5 people there, maybe a half a dozen actually. And it's just an awful lot of work going on there, and probably a lot of effort to get that tobacco to the market. Okay, so let's move on, Lee. Item number 8. What you're looking at here is the Edgecombe County Courthouse. circa 1898. So another picture that was actually labeled with the date. Now, this courthouse was eventually torn down. The one that's in Tarboro now was built 1964 through 1965, a couple of years to build that. But this courthouse here was built somewhere in the late 1800s. I'm not sure how long it had been in existence when this picture was taken in 1898, but it was a fairly new structure, I think, when this picture was taken. Now, I'll draw your attention on the right-hand side of the picture. Lee, if you would zoom in there on the side of that building. That caught my eye. I didn't recognize the name. It's a Mr. Lichtenstein that owned the grocery store there beside the courthouse in the 1800s. In fact, I did a little searching. Mr. Lichtenstein's grocery business actually started in the 1870s. See what I mean, how clear that is? I mean, for a picture to be as old as it is, to be able to zoom in and get that clarity, you can clearly see it says D. Lichtenstein and Company, Wholesale and Retail Grocers. So, but I did some searching, as I said, and I found advertisements for this business as far back as 1874, 1875, and he was still in business in the early 1900s. So, again, I'm not exactly sure where it was. Assuming the courthouse that's over there now was built in roughly the same spot or general location as this original courthouse was, I'm guessing this is over there, not too far from the river, probably on that side of Main Street, or just off Main Street anyway. But Mr. Lichtenstein had a booming business for a few decades, it looks like, certainly from the mid 1870s up to the early 1900s. So, interesting little tidbit there about a very prominent grocer in Tarboro before the turn of the century. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead then. Item number 9. This is from 1900. This picture was made, and this is one that I have seen before myself. I think I've shared it on the show, so you may remember it too. Obviously, it's Main Street. It's the 400 block of West Main Street, and this was dated 1800. And if you zoom in, Lee, that fellow up there at the top of that pole looks to be in the most precarious position. I'm not sure what he's doing. I'm guessing that's an electrical power line there. I don't know for sure, honestly. But in any case, he seems to have one foot hanging off in the midair. One foot is somehow holding him up against the pole. And I don't see a safety chain. I think he's on those pegs that they put into the sides of poles. I think he's got one foot standing on a peg, and I think he's holding two pegs in one in each hand. And he, holding himself up, obviously. But he's a pretty good ways off the ground, just judging by the height of that building there. That's a 2-story building, and he's above the height of that 2-story building. So I'm guessing he's probably a good 20, 25 feet off the ground. But and if you zoom back out, Lee, and come down to the ground level, and zoom down to the ground level, you can see again, of course, this is 1900, so we don't have a paved street. And there's a millinery shop there. And I was thinking earlier, I saw the name. Oh, yeah, scroll back up a little bit toward the top, just a little bit, Lee. There's another business name down a plaque. I couldn't make it out earlier. Just kind of pan toward the top of the picture a little bit. There you go. Yeah, some kind of dry goods store, maybe. I'm not sure. It looks like the last part could say dry goods. But anyway, this is, 1900 when this picture was made. Zoom all the way out, Lee, because I want to get, there you go. On the right-hand side of the screen, that taller structure there, that's the Tarboro Town Hall in 1900. And that tower there, there was pictures taken from that tower in all directions. We'll get to those when we come out from the break. It's time for our first commercial break anyway. But yeah, someone got up in that tower and they took pictures facing north, east, south, and west, and about this same time frame. So let's go ahead and take a break, Lee, for the first commercial break. When we come back, we'll show you some more pictures of old Tarboro. We'll take a look at some old Tar River pictures and some boats that were up and down Tar River at the turn of the century. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday. Take it away, Lee.
Today, having the right healthcare plan tailored to your specific needs is vital to your peace of mind. The question is not if you will need the coverage, but when. And when that time comes, you want to be prepared. With the rising cost of medication, medical procedures, and doctor visits, you should know which is the right insurance plan for you. From life insurance, affordable health care, to Medicare, there are a lot of insurance options available, and choosing a plan can be overwhelming. Having Gus Tullis as your insurance professional on your side will give you peace of mind, because you will know you are covered with the insurance that meets your needs.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
There's a main nerve that leaves your back that goes into your hip and goes down your leg. It's called the sciatic nerve. A back injury can put pressure on that nerve, causing pain, numbness, tingling. Chiropractors can actually help that. At the Hammer Chiropractic Center on Sunset, we know exactly what to do. We have very good relationships with the doctors in Rocky Mount. We like to co-manage people's care. Some medications may help us do our jobs, and our jobs may help their medications work better.
If you or your loved one is living with hearing loss, and if you haven't found a solution that fits your lifestyle, then you should consult with the local experts at the new Hearing Aid Urgent Care in Nashville, North Carolina. Hearing Aid Urgent Care is a place to go for over-the-counter hearing solutions that will improve your daily life and communication between your loved ones and you. Purchasing in our store does not require any prescription or medical recommendation. Our team of experts does recommend a hearing examination so we can help you purchase the correct product for your personal needs. We hold regular listen and learn events so you can ask questions and work with the high-quality products from our vendors to find out what hearing device will best suit you before you buy. Open Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you can call 252-459-4008 to find out more information. Hearing Aid Urgent Care located at 102 West Nashville Drive in Nashville, North Carolina.
And we're back. Lee just brought me, at the top of the show, I had mentioned that we always want to thank our advertisers, and unfortunately I don't do that as often as I should. And I also mentioned that if you'd like to advertise on WHIG for Wayback Wednesday or any other show for that matter, feel free to call the station anytime. The number is 252, of course, 446-8857. That's 446-8857. We'll be glad to get you hooked up as a sponsor for this show or any others. Okay. All right. As I said before, some of these pictures are really, really good, detailed, nice clarity, quality pictures. Others not so much, but again, we're talking about pictures that are over 100 years old. And so I'm just amazed that these things, I don't know where they originated from. I don't know who had the original copies of these photographs, but they've obviously been digitized or scanned and made available online at the Edgecombe Memorial Library's website. So with that being said, the next picture that I found, item number 10, if you would, let's go ahead and put that up. This was actually a warship that was photographed in Tarboro on the Tar River in 1899. There was no name for the ship, but it's obviously a ship of war, a gunship. You see the turret there with the two cannons off the front of the ship there. The only war that comes to mind that would be in this time frame is the Spanish-American War. And if you recall, the Spanish-American War was actually fought over a period of about 7 months in the year 1898. So it was a very short war. And so, and I don't know that for certain if this ship had anything to do with that. It could have just been a ship on patrol in the Tar River. Oh, we got another call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, I just like to comment on your shirt, man. I like that shirt.
Well, thank you. You know, I have a few of these shirts, and I love them. They're very comfortable, and so it's I never probably get a chance to go on vacation to Hawaii, but this is my Hawaii shirt if I do to go.
Yeah, you look good, man.
Well, thank you, buddy. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so again, this is obviously a warship. I don't know anything about it. There was no caption other than it said circa 1899. It was identified as a warship on the Tar River in Tar River, North Carolina. So, okay. All right, Lee, let's move on in. Item number 11. You know, we've had some hot weather here lately, and kind of give you cause to think about cooler weather. I don't know if we want to think so much about it as cold as it is right here in this picture. This was taken in 1893. And these gentlemen are actually ice skating on the Tar River in Tar River. I've heard of people walking on the ice at City Lake, for example, driving a car out on City Lake. But to ice skate on Tar River, that was kind of brazen. I don't know that I would have the nerve to even attempt that. These gentlemen seem to have no fear of falling through the ice, though, and apparently it was a cold winter. Because ice seems to be holding them up. So anyway, 1893, by the way, 1893 this picture was taken. And so I'm not sure, as I said at the top of the show, who took these pictures. I have no idea. None of the pictures were identified as who the photographer was. But whoever it was had a really good camera. I mean, to retain this kind of clarity and quality after all these years, that just tells you that whoever took the pictures had some very good equipment and a keen eye for photography too. Okay, Lee, moving right along then. I mentioned earlier that the photographer, whoever he was, got up in the tower, the Tarboro Town Hall Tower, and took a picture pointing east, north, south, and west. And this picture is actually taken looking east from the Tarboro Town Hall Tower in 1890. And again, you can look down at the road there. This is not a paved road, obviously, it's a dirt road. You can see the wagon wheel tracks quite clearly in the road. And this appears to be in the winter. All the leaves are gone off the trees. It even looks like it might be a light coating of snow around, which is ironic because quite a few of these pictures have snow in them, and we'll show you one in a minute. It's got quite a bit of snow. But this was taken 1890, and it's looking east from the Tarboro Town Hall Tower. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 13. Same vantage point, just looking south. This picture here was taken, there you go, and this is not as good a quality. I'm not sure, maybe the sun was in his eyes. I'm not quite sure why this one didn't turn out as good as the other one did. But this was dated the same date, 1890, but it was looking south from the Town Hall Tower, the Tarboro Town Hall Tower. And again, if you zoom in, Lee, down at the bottom of the picture, you can clearly see the wagon wheel tracks in the road. You can see a couple of horse and buggies there that are kind of parked, if you will, on the side of the road. And it's just, you know, these old pictures, when they were scanned, whoever digitized these pictures and put them up to be available for download off the Edgecombe County Memorial Library's website, did a really good job of scanning these things, because you know you can scan a picture several different ways and use several different techniques to do it. But there you see obviously clearly see wagon wheels there. You see the ruts in the dirt road there. You can see people standing on the right hand side of the road. Gentleman standing on that tree limb there. Looks to be a couple of folks there in the buggies. But you know, I'm really amazed by the quality of these pictures and the detail you get when you do zoom in on them. So anyway, 1890s. Okay, so in the same vein, item number 14, if you would, Lee. Oh, you're a step ahead of me. There we go. Yep, this is looking west from the Town Hall Tower. Again, 1890s. And just you know, a couple things that jumped out at me. If you look down in the left-hand side near the bottom, I'm not sure what that circular shape design is, unless it was some kind of fountain maybe or something. It looks kind of big to be a fountain in somebody's yard, but I don't know. It's just a perfectly round circle there. And it may have been something that maybe something to use a horse, maybe walking a horse around in circles, whatever. Maybe there was a well there. Maybe there was something that would pump the water out of the well by having a horse or a cow walk around a circle. I don't know. I just thought it was neat there, though, that it's clearly visible in this picture. And again, you can see the ruts in the road, so it's clearly a dirt road. As I said earlier, I'm not sure when paved roads hit Tarboro. I seem to recall reading and seeing that the first paved roads in Rocky Mount were sometime in the 1915, 1920 time frame. And so I would assume that Tarboro was probably somewhere in that same range. So we are literally probably 20 years or better from paved roads being around, and this is what it was like in the 1890s in Tarboro, and Rocky Mount too, for that matter. Okay, Lee, that was number 14. Let's go to number 15 if we could then. Number 15, this is a picture inside the McNair's drugstore that was located in the 400 block of Main Street. And this picture was also identified in the caption as being circa 1900. So again, turn of the century here. And I did zoom in on this at my desk, and there's not a lot of detail here. You can see some canned goods that look up on the shelf up there. Beyond that, it's really not too much to draw your attention to. But I thought it was unusual the way up at the ceiling. If you look at the ceiling, I remember as a child going into stores in downtown Rocky Mount, and you look up at the ceiling, it had them square metal ceiling plates. I'm not sure what you call them, tiles, if you will. But this ceiling in this picture seems to have those same type of metal tiles, or whatever they were referred to, covering the entire ceiling. And pretty neat design there on the back wall too, up near the ceiling. I'm not sure what that is, some kind of ornamental design on the wall there. But talk about these old pictures and how clear they are. This is really clear too, to be, again, 1900. That's 123 years old. So, okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 16. I mentioned earlier that just like Rocky Mount, Tarboro had its share of mills and those type of businesses. This was the Runnymede hosiery mill. This picture was taken in 1905. Runnymede made socks and hosiery and those types of apparel. And Runnymede is still in business, by the way. This company has been around since the late 1800s and is still in operation in certain parts of the country. Now, I'm not sure whether there's an operational facility in Tarboro. I didn't really research that, to be honest with you. But I just did a quick search on Runnymede hosiery, and I did find there were other plants around the country. So, but this building actually shows up in the background of another picture. I don't think we've gone by it yet. If we happen to get to it again, I'll point it out to you. But I do remember seeing this tower, if you will, in another picture. It was in the background of the picture, so we may not have gotten to that yet. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. That was number 16. Let's go to number 17. We've talked before about how the Tar River was a major mode of transportation, certainly before the railroad came in the 1840s. But even after that, the river was still widely used for transportation. Many, many years before the white man ever came here, the Tuscarora Indians traveled up and down the Tar River. It wasn't Tar River then, of course. I forgot what they called it. But in any case, it was a navigable river, and much more so east of Rocky Mount, going Tarboro and on down toward the Pamlico Sound. Interesting about this picture here, Lee, if you zoom in on this picture, the very front, the bow of the picture of this boat here, if you zoom in, this boat is actually named, it's a sailboat, of course, it's a luxury craft, and it's named Brace Bridge, B-R-A-C-E-B-R-I-D-G-E. And it just so happens in this particular picture that, if you want to call it a yacht, I guess that's fair to say it's a yacht, but the governor of North Carolina, Elias Carr, who was the governor of North Carolina from 1893 to 1897, was on board that boat when this picture was taken. Now, I'm not sure which gentleman here he was. I'm looking at looks like half a dozen, maybe I think it's 4 up front, maybe a couple in the back. But one of those gentlemen is our governor at the time, Mr. Elias Carr. But if you pan down a little bit later, you can see the name of the boat the other way. No, get the ship itself. There you go. All right, there you go. Now you see the name of the boat there at the front? Yeah, Bracebridge. There you go. As it turns out, some of you may know this, I did not know this, but Bracebridge is actually a historic home. It's on the Historical Registry of Historic Homes, and it is the original home of Governor Elias Carr, who lived for a spell in Tarboro. So this was his boat. He was on this boat when this picture was taken, and this picture was taken in 1900. And so by this time, he was no longer governor. I should have said former governor, because he served from 1893 to 1897. He was the 48th governor, by the way, of North Carolina, the 48th governor, but he served from 1893 to 1897. This picture was made in 1900. So he was a former governor by this point, but this was taken on the Tar River. Okay, so item number 18, if you would, Lee. I mentioned that Bracebridge was Governor Carr's home, and this is it in Tarboro. This is Bracebridge Hall, and you see there on the plaque on the little brick stoop there out front there, it says Bracebridge Hall, Governor Elias Carr, 1815 and 1838. I'm not sure what those dates signify. It says circa 1815, 1830. I think that may have been maybe when he lived in the house. Maybe he lived and left and came back. I'm not sure why there was such a broad range there in the dates. And I'm not exactly sure where this home is. I don't recall ever going to see it, but it's in Edgecombe County somewhere. And actually, after I saw that boat there, sailboat on the Tar River, and the caption read that it belonged to former Governor Elias Carr, I did a little checking and found that this was actually the home, and this is what the ship was named after, Bracebridge Hall. Okay. Alrighty. I mentioned a minute ago that there were lots of mills around, just like Rocky Mount had Rocky Mount Mills. Tarboro had the Runnymede Hosiery. They had their own mills, and one of them was called the Shiloh Knitting Mill. Item number 19, if you would, Lee. In 1898, this picture was taken of the Shiloh Knitting Mill in Tarboro, and if you zoom in, you can see a gentleman standing there in the doorway of this old mill. Now, I'm not sure how long this mill had been in operation in 1898. I just taking a guess, it looks to be a relatively new building, but then again, it's hard to say for sure. I just don't know. There was no information in the picture given about how old the building was, or when it was built, I should say. But this picture was actually captioned as being the Shiloh Knitting Mill, 1898. And I just realized it's time for our next commercial break. So Lee, bring it back to me if you would. We're going to break again, folks, and get a couple of words in from our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to show you some more old pictures of Tarboro and Edgecombe County. Take your calls if you'd like to call and share your memories with us. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
Today, having the right health care plan tailored to your specific needs is vital to your peace of mind. The question is not if you will need the coverage, but when. And when that time comes, you want to be prepared. With the rising cost of medication, medical procedures, and doctor visits, you should know which is the right insurance plan for you. From life insurance, affordable health care, to Medicare, there are a lot of insurance options available, and choosing a plan can be overwhelming. Having Gus Tullis as your insurance professional on your side will give you peace of mind, because you will know you are covered with the insurance that meets your needs.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
There's a main nerve that leaves your back that goes into your hip and goes down your leg. It's called the sciatic nerve. A back injury can put pressure on that nerve, causing pain, numbness, tingling. Chiropractors can actually help that. At the Hammer Chiropractic Center on Sunset, we know exactly what to do. We have very good relationships with the doctors in Rocky Mount. We like to co-manage people's care. Some medications may help us do our jobs, and our jobs may help their medications work better.
If you or your loved one is living with hearing loss, and if you haven't found a solution that fits your lifestyle, then you should consult with the local experts at the new Hearing Aid Urgent Care in Nashville, North Carolina. Hearing Aid Urgent Care is a place to go for over-the-counter hearing solutions that will improve your daily life and communication between your loved ones and you. Purchasing in our store does not require any prescription or medical recommendation. Our team of experts does recommend a hearing examination so we can help you purchase the correct product for your personal needs. We hold regular listen and learn events so you can ask questions and work with the high-quality products from our vendors to find out what hearing device will best suit you before you buy. Open Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you can call 252-459-4008 to find out more information. Hearing Aid Urgent Care located at 102 West Nashville Drive in Nashville, North Carolina.
Okay, we're back. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about Tarboro and Edgecombe County specifically from the late 1800s, early 1900s. I found these pictures all on the Edgecombe Memorial Library's website. So if you've got a computer and you want to go look at these things yourself, I encourage you to do so. It's easy to find. You do a Google search on Edgecombe Memorial Library pictures. And there's a link there. And there's over 1,700 pictures. I think what I remember, 1762, I think. So it's quite a collection of pictures there. And I spent, a few hours there and went through only the first couple of hundred and picked out 30 out of those first couple of hundred to share with you tonight. So I'm going back to the site and I will try to dig some more out. I'm sure there's got to be some pictures of early Rocky Mount in there as well. I didn't get that far. Like I said, after 200 pictures, and all those 200 were specifically related to Tarboro and Edgecombe County rural areas. I did take a couple pictures of Princeville too, but anyway, I'll go back to the site and pull some more and share on next week's show and future shows. There's an area on the Tar River in the kind of a little bit north of Princeville. Some of you may be familiar with, referred to as Shiloh. Many years ago, was a landing there. It's a favorite fishing spot, in fact. A lot of people fish up and down Tar River, of course, both Tarboro and Rocky Mount. But Shiloh has been known for, 100 years or more, in fact. And there was settlements there. And in the late 1800s, there was an oil mill down there at Shiloh. And I don't know whether it was a cottonseed oil mill or a peanut oil mill, but there was an oil mill there. Item number 20, if you would, Lee. This is a picture of the Shiloh Oil Company on Tar River. And what it says at the bottom there, I'm not sure, it's got some man's name. It looks like Mr., and I can't make out what his name is, but it says his first meal. So whoever the gentleman was that started this meal at the Shiloh location, there's his name right there. And apparently he had more than one meal, but this is the, according to this picture here, the way it was captioned, Mr. So-and-so's first meal. And you see off to the right it says Shiloh. And the picture was further captioned by the library as being the Shiloh Tar River Oil Company, 1890. That's when this picture was taken. So this is one picture, and it just so happened whoever took this picture got a different angle, took the same meal, the same day. So Lee, go ahead, let's put up item number 21. This is just another view of the same picture. And I'm wondering if that gentleman, whoever he is, it almost looks like Frankenstein or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm wondering if that's him on that horse and buggy. And Lee, if you zoom in, you can get a pretty good indication of the gentleman's features. I'm not saying it's crystal clear, but again, it's the clarity in these old pictures. It's amazing to me that you can zoom in. And on the computer, if you go to this Edgecombe Memorial Library website and click on these pictures, you can literally zoom right in and get some really neat detail on some of these old pictures. But again, this is the the Tar River Oil Company, built there at the Shiloh Landing and in Tarboro. There you go. So, it's an old picture, but still, you can make out the man's got a hat on. The caller earlier mentioned everyone's got a hat on, and certainly this gentleman did too. And so just it's a neat way to look back and step back in time and see how the world was literally 130 years ago. So, okay, Lee, let's go ahead and move on then. Item number 22. We talked earlier about trains, and this was certainly Edgecombe County and Rocky Mount were tied together by the railroad, just like they were tied together by the Tar River. And this is steam engine locomotive number 118. And if you zoom in, you can actually read that on the front there in that little round right above the cow catcher there. It says 118. So I did a little research and tried to find out what I could and whether or not engine 118 was still in operation. And apparently, this particular steam engine has been probably, you see the 118, probably been scuttled or disassembled many years ago, maybe scrapped, I'm not sure. But I found a reference to it, and it said that this was the very similar engine, almost identical in fact, to the one at Tweetsie Railroad. And so I went, and I should have printed that picture off or saved it. I did not do that, but I did. I did a Google search on Tweetsie Railroad, and lo and behold, that train at Tweetsie Railroad, and we went there when I was a child. It's been many, many years ago, but I remember we took a family vacation. My mother, my father, my sister, my brother, myself, went to Tweetsie Railroad, and somewhere in our family's photography, I don't know who's got those old pictures, probably my sister, but anyway, we took some pictures of Tweetsie Railroad, and I remember this train was one almost identical to this anyway. So again, this is from 1890s, 1899 to be exact, was what this picture was actually identified as. And so, there's a few of these old steam locomotives still in operation. I've not heard anything about Tweetsie Railroad in a long time. I assume that old steam engine up there is still running around the tracks. But there's a handful of these things around. I think more so out in the western part of the country than there are around here. But they were built well, and they have survived the test of time for sure. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Speaking of trains and tracks and so forth, item number 23, this is an old picture dated from the 1890s also, and it actually shows a train trestle going over the Tar River. And it doesn't say where this was other than it says steamboat, the caption read, steamboat by the Metal Truss Bridge over Tar River, circa 1890s. And so, and you see under the bridge there on the river itself, there's a steamboat. And there was a time when steamboat traffic was just routine up and down Tar River. Lots of goods were transported up and down Tar River, certainly agricultural products, cotton, tobacco, soybean, and so forth, corn. But there were also, supplies and things that people needed. So the river was a very common way to move merchandise from the eastern part of the state, down around the coast, certainly, up into this part of the state. And so these steam engines and barges and so forth, steamboats and barges were quite common in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and moved a lot of merchandise for people up and down who lived along the river. Okay, Lee. Moving right along, there's another landing on the Tar River referred to as the mouth of Hendricks Creek. And I can't say I had ever heard of this till I saw this picture here, but it was number 24. There you go, Lee. Obviously a very busy place here. This was, again, it was called Mouth of Hendricks Creek. The picture was dated 1890, and you see there's a barge right there. There seems to be some kind of shed, a smaller boat over to the left there, I think. But this was a place where people would load and unload merchandise, stuff that was shipped up and down the Tar River, from the coast up here and back down again. But it was referred to as Tar River Landing at the mouth of Hendricks Creek. And this was the first picture I found, and the very next picture, Lee, go ahead to number 25 if you would. This is just another view of the exact same place. And you see there, this is obviously in the winter. You see the snow on the ground there, the snow in the trees, and you can see the steam rising off the ship out there, the steamboat, probably either just pulling into port or fixing to pull away from port. But it's just, if you think about how times have changed and how much Tar River used to be used for transportation and how little of it's used for that now. I mean, it's more, when you get down from Tarboro and certainly further downstream from Tarboro, you get to see more boat traffic, but it's primarily fishing boats and pleasure boats. You rarely see anybody moving merchandise up and down Tar River. But at one time, it was a very common practice, and a lot of merchandise, as I said, was moved up and down the river by these old steam boats and so forth. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. This is another picture, and I think it may have been just another angle of the picture we saw earlier. You see how this is River Tar. But under this, the library had captioned it a little bit further. It says Steamboat Tar River circa 1899. I'm not sure, but I think this may be a drawbridge. And the reason I say that, Lee, if you would, zoom in right there on the bridge itself. And you can zoom right in on this thing. This picture is one of those that's got enough quality that you can zoom right in on it. There's a couple neat structures that once you zoom in, you'll be able to see that makes me think this was a drawbridge. And I didn't recall there being a drawbridge on Tar River, but, it's certainly possible that tall masted sailing ships that could come up Tar River could, in fact, require that a bridge be able to be, if not opened, it certainly at least pivoted and turned, as some bridges do. But if you look right there, that picture on the far right-hand side, there's what looks to be a bridge tender's little house there, a little shack, cabin, whatever you want to call it, right up there just above the level of the bridge itself on the right-hand side. And then down in the center pylon, right there in the middle way of the bridge, it looks like there's a point there where the bridge would open up, and I'm not sure if it would pivot or open up, but to me this looks very much like a drawbridge. I'm not sure what kind of mechanism would be involved in opening it unless there was some kind of maybe some kind of steam engine or something that drove a crank with pulleys and gears and rope and stuff. I'm not sure, honestly. And I could be wrong. I'm not saying, because there was nothing about the caption that referenced a drawbridge. But it certainly looked to me like it could be a drawbridge there. And only thing I could think of that would require a drawbridge would be if there would be like a tall masted ship that would be coming up the river and couldn't get past here unless the bridge did open up. So just a thought. Okay, we're about to run out of time. We've got a few more. Let's go these last three or four here. Number 27. This was 1890, and Tarboro was excavating and constructing their sewer system, downtown Main Street, Tarboro. And you see there, these gentlemen in a ditch looks to be about waist deep, maybe a little bit deeper than waist deep, and they're getting ready to lay pipe for Tarboro's sewer system. In 1890, this picture was taken. Not great quality, but still kind of, if you zoom in on the right-hand side, there's actually a business you can read on the sign hanging outside the front of the building there, and I think it says Cochrane or something like that. Anyway, we can go ahead. We don't have to zoom in, Lee. I just happened to think about it. There is a sign there. Number 28, Tarboro Town Hall. I mentioned earlier, this is the picture, different angle of the Tarboro Town Hall. But there you go. You can see there, what does it say? Gordon Drugs, I think maybe. Maybe it's Gordon Drugs. Either Gordon or Cordon, I'm not sure exactly. But I remember there being a sign that you could read. So anyway. All right, it's okay, Lee. You can go ahead now. Let's go to item number 28. We'll see if we get these last two or three in before we run out of time. This is the Tarboro Town Hall. This picture was dated 1899, and you can see the tower there. That tower was, we spoke earlier about the photographer got up on top of this tower and took a picture looking east, north, south, and west around Tarboro. This was the tower that he was standing in when he took those pictures we saw earlier. Okay, and then item number 29, Lee. It looks like at some point they remodeled or tore down and built a new one. I'm not sure which, but this picture was also identified as Tarboro City Town Hall. Now, and I say this picture, if you look, those cars are from the 1930s, maybe in the 1940s, I'm thinking 1930s. But anyway, this is obviously a different shaped building. So either they completely remodeled the original town hall or tore it down and built a new one in another location. I'm not sure. Obviously, by now we've got paved streets too. You see the paved street there in front of this building. So, but I looked at these two buildings and compared them several times. I would not swear they're not the same building and just been have a massive renovation done to them. But it could also be two entirely separate buildings. I'm just not sure. Okay, Lee, number 30, if you would. 1898, Tar River was, as I said a minute ago, used to transport all kinds of goods. These are actually tethered logs that are en route to a sawmill, and they were tied together and hooked to a barge, and they would be floated up and down the river to a sawmill. And so that's something that probably was very commonplace to see on the Tar River at the turn of the century. I don't think I've ever seen it in my lifetime, and I dare say most folks alive today have not seen a picture like this on Tar River. Okay, Lee. Last but not least, in 1899, there was a heck of a snowfall in Tarboro, and this picture is taken west side of Main Street, 1899. Looks to be, I don't know, several inches of snow there anyway. I wouldn't venture a guess as to how deep it was. It's been some traffic, obviously it's been kind of patted down some now, but certainly a heavy snowfall for sure in Tarboro in 1899. Lee, bring it back to me. Folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. We run slam out of time. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Thank those that called in and shared your memories and your thoughts with us. It's been my pleasure to be with you as always. Have a great week, folks. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to one another. We'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.